When shit happens to you that you don't like, go through it. Don't move away from it. Because if you go through it, people respect you more. Like, wow, okay, that was a bad thing that happened to him. He did something stupid, got his ass fired. You know, your humiliation, self-humiliation is determined by you. It's not determined by others.
What do you think we could all do to be better humans tomorrow?
To me, it's one thing. And it's only one thing, and I want to keep it very simple. It's kindness. You got to get up in the morning and you got to think about kindness. And I often think of my grandmother. You know, I think of my grandmother's struggle to come to the United States, the risk she took to be here. Kindness is the number one thing. Even if you're in a bad mood, you're having a bad day, if you can get your arms around the idea of being kind, it makes a world of difference for yourself and your family, and it'll make you a happier person.
Welcome back to the Better Human podcast. Today we've got an amazing guest. As usual, we always are bringing amazing guests. Today we've got Anthony Scaramucci, right? Anthony is the founder and managing partner of SkyBridge, which is a global alternative investment firm, and founder and chairman of SALT, which is an amazing conference and organization that's bringing a ton of thought leadership and insight when it comes down to the world of investment and, just in all rounds being successful with what's happening in the world today. A little bit about Anthony. Some of you might know this. He goes by the nickname The Mooch. And I figured in today's sort of intro, I'm going to read off a couple testimonials that were written for Anthony for his book called From Wall Street to the Whitehouse and Back Again. And the first one really stood out to me, and it said, I talked about embracing failure in my book. And I could say Anthony's book is a great tool for anyone that wants to learn on how to bounce back from setbacks and failure. And that was written by our one and only Arnold Schwarzenegger, governor of the state of California, the Terminator himself. And the next one really sort of stood out to me from Robert Wolf, which is love him or hate him, there's nobody quite my friend the Mooch. From the world of finance to DC, his illustrious career is filled with successes, failures, and most importantly, the stories that only Anthony could tell. His experiences both leading up to and following his 11 memorable days in the Trump White House is a kind of a unique journey and makes this book a real page turner and an in-depth look into the life of one of the most interesting people I know. Anthony, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, it's great to be on with you. Thank you. It was a very generous introduction. You said it exactly the way my mom wrote it, so I just want to be grateful to you for that. Thank
you. Amazing. Well, listen, we've got limited time with you today, and I've got so much to sort of pick your brain on and ask you. But before we get there, for the audience that haven't read your book, why don't we start with the story? So tell us a little bit about the world of finance, how that led into being the director of communications for the Trump administration?
So if I was going to write anything on my tombstone, not that it'll matter because once I'm dead it doesn't matter, but it's an undeserved life. Basically, I've been incredibly lucky. I don't say that with any false modesty. If you said to me, okay, you're going to get born into a blue collar family out on Long Island, Italian American family, uneducated people, all very hardworking. Traditional family, though, lots of love, but it's not going to be a trajectory or a launch pad into the Ivy League or anything like that. And then because you're in America and you go to a good public school system, you have good grades, you can start excelling in school. And I end up on Wall Street primarily for superficial reasons. I need money. I had to borrow a lot of money to go to Tufts and Harvard. And so I'm going to go to Wall Street for these superficial reasons. And I don't do well on Wall Street, frankly. I don't know the lingo. I'm not dressed right. I end up getting fired 18 months into the job. And then ironically, I get hired back into Goldman Sachs 2 months later. And then my career starts. But now I'm in the what's called the high net worth area or the private banking area, and I'm tasked with the assignment to meet wealthy individuals and families and bring them in as clients of Goldman Sachs. Well, I don't know, Greg. I don't know any wealthy individuals or families. Never hit a golf ball, never swung a tennis racket. There I am. And my path to success was through politics. And so I wrote a $250 check to Rudolph Giuliani in 1993, Young Republicans for Rudy. And people say, well, why are you a Republican? Well, very simple answer to that. I'm a Republican because my dad's union was controlled by Republicans out on Long Island. My father's union was controlled by a guy named Joe Margiotta. May his soul rest in peace, by the way, because he got me a job. When I got into Harvard Law School, Mr. Margiotta got me a job on the Stone Dock, and for 2 summers paid me $16 an hour, which at that time was a lot of money. And if you worked a 60-hour work week, 20 of those hours, you got time and a half. It was a holiday, you got double time. And so I made enough money to really help me get through law school with the loans. But there I was. What am I going to do after law school? Okay, I'm going to go into finance. Okay, I don't know anybody in finance. How am I going to make it a living? And it was through politics. So I started becoming a big, and when I say big, big for me, you know, a well-known, fairly prominent Republican Party fundraiser. I raised successfully for Giuliani, raised successfully for Pataki, raised money for George W. Bush. I broke from the party in 2008 because Barack Obama and I went to law school. I gave him some money, did some bundling for him, went back to the Republican Party with Romney, was with Jeb Bush when I got recruited into the Trump campaign in 2016. And so Jeb likes to tell people if he became the American president, Greg, I wouldn't have been anywhere near the White House, which would have been probably better for me, actually. But he didn't become the American president, and Trump invited me into the White House. And as I write in that book, that was my ego talking to me. I wanted to work for the American president. He's a little off his rocker. Even if you are supporting him, and I know you probably have listeners that support him and you have listeners that don't support him, but even if so even if you're supporting him, I just submit to you rhetorically, don't you sense that he's a little off his rocker? Okay, he's a little off his rocker. I mean, come on, he's not the normal.
Yeah, he's an excessive or an extreme, maybe
yeah,
personality.
He's an eccentric guy, right? So my wife who hates Trump almost as much as Melania hates him, which is like way up here. She didn't want me to do it, and I did it. And it was a mistake of ego and pride. And it obviously cost me with an explosion and a firing and a roasting. And how do you recover from that? How do you build yourself back up? How do you shake off the tar that hits you? How do you shake off the infamy, if you will? And I write about it honestly in the book. You know what steps I took to, and also it's a mindset. You know, I mean, you know this. You're in the business of this. You change your mindset, anything can happen in your life. If you want to wake up in the morning with a millstone of regret on your neck and you want to carry that with you, you know, I don't wake up in the morning and say, oh, I did some stupid things in the White House, got my ass fired in July of 2017. Let me kick myself in the pants today. I don't do that. I don't even think about it. I get up and go to work and, you know, and I think it's a big lesson for young people, frankly.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. So you were talking about how sort of, you know, you went to law school and then swooped into finance, right? Which you were just not sort of polished, skilled, experienced with. Yet you then ended up in a role which was fundraising for political parties. So I want to just sort of get some insight there. How did that transition happen? I mean, did it start with that first $250 check with Giuliani, and then from that it just led to the next and the next and the next, and you found yourself in this role, which is interesting in the sense that you know, for someone that said they weren't really sort of skilled or schooled in finance, you did a pretty damn good job, right? I mean, that in itself is a tremendous amount of networking and relationship management and finance, right? So tell me a little bit. And what I also like that you said was, you know, regardless of whether you like Trump or not, whether you are appreciate his personality or you don't appreciate his personality, the exercise is you serve the presidency, right? Doesn't matter who sits in that seat, right? I mean, at the end of the day, and the administration and even the operations of the White House, how do these people stick out careers year after year after year after year, has a lot to do with the fact that they're serving the presidency, which is the American people.
Well, that was one of the big disagreements with Trump because, you know, when you go through the orientation, and since you know a lot about the White House. The orientation is about the institution of the presidency, and the White House itself is, of course, the people's house. And so the president is living there at the invitation of the people for a designated period of time pursuant to what's said in the Constitution. But it's not his house. And the job that he represents is actually the institution of the presidency. And so, when you're on staff for the president, even if you've been designated by him, of course you work for him, but you're also abided to the U.S. Constitution. And you also have to think about the institution of the presidency more so than the individual. And so Mr. Trump obviously did not like that. And so I think that's why so many people that were working with him are now currently at odds with him, whether it's the former vice president or it's the chief of staff, General Kelly, or you pick 10 or 20 people that work for him in the cabinet, all of which are at odds with him because, he wants you to work for him and to really understand the Constitution, really understand the job. You're there at the service of the American people. But whatever. I mean, the point is, I'm an accidental entrant into the world of politics. Also, it's hard to believe this. People don't believe this is fine. I say it anyway. I'm also an accidental entrant into the world of television. So, and I'll just say this. I graduated in 1989 from law school at the age of 25. I don't have a television appearance for the first 20 years of my career. My first television appearance doesn't happen until I'm 45. And so I had no inkling to be on television. If I did, I could have found a way to get there a lot earlier. My business was failing in 2008. The business I'm talking to you from, SkyBridge, was underwater. We were going through the global financial crisis. We made a decision to start a conference business, which we were taking a huge risk on because there weren't a lot of conferences. Everyone was canceling their conferences during the crisis. And somebody said to me, well, you got to go on television to promote the conference. So I said, oh, okay, I'll go on television. And so that led to a fairly robust television profile, again, by accident. So, and this is, I guess, instructive.
Maybe not by accident, maybe by path and universe and fate and destiny. I'm a big believer in this, which is the path we walk is. Yeah, the path we walk is the path we're supposed to, right? And I think that
I'm a believer in that. But I guess you would say, let me
unintentional.
But let me get you to react to this, right? You're planning your life. God's laughing. So if you said to me at age 25, I'm 60. So if you said to me at age 35, at age 25, this is how the 35 years of your career are going to unfold. That's very different than the 35 years that I idealized in my mind. Would you accept that? So, I mean, but again, I wouldn't change it for anything in the world. I've been very blessed in life. I've been blessed with, nice people to live with and good kids and all this other stuff. And obviously I love my wife, but I'm just saying that a lot of things could have gone differently and they went in an ill-conceived way. I also write about in the book, I made a pivot into cryptocurrency 4 years ago. A lot of my traditional finance people thought I was brain dead to do that. And it cost me some capital, some withdrawals from my fund. It also cost me some standing in the press. I got fairly heavily ridiculed by the press. But it's also been very financially rewarding. It's been rewarding for my clients that stuck with me. So what are the lessons here? I mean, again, these are just observations. I've been humbled by life and markets. So I'm not saying anything overly declaratively, but I'm just saying that here are lessons. Stay at things. Don't give up. Number two, bad stuff is going to happen to you. You're going to make bad decisions. You can't hang on those decisions. You got to go forward without living with regret. That's nonsensical. And then the third thing is that, you got to attack life with an unbelievable amount of unbridled enthusiasm because, what else are you going to do? I got today. I may step off the curve, God forbid, get hit by a bus tomorrow, or I could have a unforeseen illness. I can't predict my demise. I can predict with certainty I will have a demise. I just don't know when the hell it's going to happen. But so far God's batted 1,000 on planet Earth. Or like Mel Brooks says, relax. None of us are getting out of here alive, right? So we have to accept this. And, I think that the Stoics understood this really well. The minute that you're able to get out of the denialism of what's going on and accept certain things about your fate, accept certain things about the uncertainty of life, I think life becomes a happier experience. It becomes more enjoyable.
Yeah, totally agree. I think, when there's a great Chinese proverb that says if you're trying to get water out of a stream, the worst thing you could do is try to grab the water, right? Like with intensity, right? You're grabbing the water, and the more you grab that water, the less water you're going to get. And sometimes you kind of just need to slow things down and in this line, appreciate it, right? That it goes the way it should, and I should cup my hands and dip them into water, right? So, I want to come back to thank you to Salt. 2008. I mean, well, this is a joke. You and a bunch of buddies sitting around saying, "Let's start a fucking conference." Right? How did that begin? Like, how do you transition from finance into the world of conferences and stuff? And then I want to talk just a little bit about the call it less than 3 weeks that you spent in the White House.
Well, I mean, so we're still in asset management. We just added a conference business, but I was asked 10 or so years ago, what was the extraordinary vision that got you into the conference business? Because it's been an award-winning conference. It's made us money, and it's helped us grow our asset management.
Which is very difficult, by the way, conferences as a revenue model to actually create a profitability within a conference, because just the operational costs and even the cost of speakers and you're a traveling show. You have different countries that you're doing the show in, which also now adds a layer of difficulty.
There's no question. We're lucky in the sense that we have a very loyal delegate base, and so we can do a lot of revenue prediction on the delegate base, but you're right. It's hard to make money in these things, but I'm just saying that our vision was this superficial. And I think I like saying this to people because it'll remind them that you don't have to be some arcane genius. Our vision was, okay, we're likely to go out of business with our asset management company. We're good salespeople. We're probably going to start a third-party marketing business. A result of which, if we have a conference, that'll be good for our third-party marketing business. And so anyway, that's how it started. It wasn't like, oh, I have this strategic business where everything's going to interlock and fit beautifully. I didn't anticipate that, but that did happen. And so, it goes back to something I know you believe is that hard work, persistence, testing things, trying things. I'm showing up. I'm here today showing up. When Bitcoin last year at this time was 26,000, which just for your viewers and listeners, that's 42,000 ago. Okay. And it was a very rough patch for SkyBridge. I was here at this desk working, looking for ideas, looking for solutions, creative ideas, innovations. And I think that the conference business was one of those things where we're in the secondary business now, where we're buying secondaries from venture capitalists or from employees at pre-IPO firms. That's been a very lucrative business for us. That was not a business that we were in even 2 years ago, which we're in now. And so for these reasons, it's just a lesson about being present and showing up and making sure that you're aware of what's going on around you and taking risks. You got to take risks. I have fallen on my face several times, and I'm a high profile guy, so they're going to write the failure. And I've had a financial obituary written about me, I think 3, possibly 4 times, but I have failed upwards, and so people won't write the success stories, or if people say, well, you and Donald Trump had a falling out. You let Sam Bankman-Fried invest in your business. Somebody asked me on TV last week, shouldn't I be questioning your judgment? Of course, I looked at the anchor. I said, well, I happen to like you, so Is that bad judgment that I like you? You know,
Yeah, well,
my
you
point
don't
is,
know. You don't know
you can
everyone
pick the two
until
people I screwed
things do
up with,
come
but
clear.
right, exactly. You can pick the two people I screwed up with, but there's a legion of people that I didn't screw up with that we don't write about, and that's fine. And I accept that too. You have to be a big boy about everything, you know?
Correct, correct. Isn't that sad in regard to us as human beings, which is one will so quickly jump on the failure and the mistakes and the problems versus the successes and accolades. And I think it was Elon Musk that said this, which he said, they'll all laugh at you until you make it, right? Then
Yes.
they applaud you. Um, and you nailed something, which is you are a pretty high profile guy. So when, let's say in quotations, when you do fall, the potential to fall backwards because of that PR and that sort of spotlight on you is very difficult. And we live in a world today which people are so shit scared of failing, specifically the younger generation. Like there's this avoidance of taking risk, right? And you talk about your business and like, I'm just thinking about the word, this is the definition of what an entrepreneur is. An entrepreneur is the one that says, F it, let's do this. I've got a vision. I see where this can go. And you've mentioned this a couple times. You've used the word superficial, and I want to clarify. Do you mean that in like a negative way? Like you joined the White House superficially, you started the
Yes, I
conference
do
business
mean that.
superficially, or
I
do you
do
mean
mean that
in
in a
a
negative way.
negative way?
I do mean that
Can you
in a
expand
negative
upon that?
way. I think, yes, I mean that in a negative way. I think that, I mean, this is brutally honest, doesn't reflect well on me. I think there has been some level of impetuosity to my decision making, even as a kid. And so why go to law school? Well, they're paying lawyers $65,000 a year, and that's a first year salary. Again, these are 1985 numbers. And my dad is making 32,000 a year. Okay, I'm going to law school. Superficial. I didn't think about a career as a lawyer. I didn't think about what it meant to be a lawyer, or frankly, what it even meant to go to law school. But I went to law school. When I got to law school, I hated every minute of it. You know, the only thing I learned in law school was don't be a lawyer. I thought that was the most obvious thing to learn in law school. But it was a superficial thing. Okay. When I took the job in banking, it was money related. I'd like to tell you that it was some deep, you know, philosophical journey. And I came down from the mountain and said, I'm going to go work at an investment bank. It was money related. I didn't have any money. I had a lot of school debt. They were paying not 65, but they were paying 85,000 at the banks. It's 25% increase. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try this. Now, I have told kids this, and people should listen to this. Don't take the job for money, and don't take the job that you think makes you look or sound cool. I wanted that job, Greg, because I wanted to be the coolest guy at the cocktail party at graduation at Harvard Law School. What's the hot job? Well, if you're a money making guy, it's investment banking at Goldman. Okay, well, I got that job. So let me go brag to my friends due to my insecurities that I got the job. And I sucked at that job. And so I ended up getting fired from that job, and that might come up. And so, yes, I'm talking about superficial in a negative way, because you can superficially do something and it works out great, the conference business. You could superficially do something and it doesn't work out that great, the White House business. But, you know, look, in hindsight, it's 7 years since I got fired from the White House. I look back on that moment in time and I regret working for Trump for different reasons. Philosophically, I'm a very different person than him. And again, I know that people support him and I know people don't support him. I'm not here to make this political, but I regret that decision. I'm sure he regrets hiring me, by the way. But here's what I would say. I'm glad I did it. It humbled me. It made me more psychologically minded. It forced a perspective on life that I probably didn't have before I did it, and a result of which I'm grateful for it.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned something failing forward before, right? These are the biggest lessons that we can take, right? Um,
Yeah, you got to fail forward. You mentioned Elon Musk. Elon Musk has failed forward, by the way, and obviously he's succeeded more brilliantly. than anybody that in history of the world. But he was almost out of business in '08. He had a rocket company and he had an electric car company were not doing well. Now he was able to save those two businesses, and he went on to create a stupendous amount of wealth for himself and his investors. And he certainly deserves his success. But I think if you get the chance to interview him, and I've seen enough of his interviews, he knows that there was touch and go moments for him. And I think every entrepreneur knows that there's been touch or go moments, and they know they've got to restart things or they got to relaunch things. I love when these rockets blow up on Elon Musk and he's out there on Twitter and says, "Oh, that's fantastic. We've got this other thing we're going to do now," because it's just this unbridled optimism and this unbridled adaptability that he has as a human being, which I think is very inspiring.
I think it sounds like you've got that same type of quality, right? I mean, it doesn't make sense to be an entrepreneur.
I don't have Elon Musk's skill set, obviously, on a smaller scale, but I do think that, listen, I have 5 children, and I have to show my children that you can make your way after setbacks and failure, and the White House thing was particularly brutal on my adult children because, they were, you go into politics, unfortunately, the bomb goes off and, it shatters the family house. It doesn't take just you out in your career. It blows the windows out of your kids' homes as well. It's not a fun thing for kids.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is what people don't really understand about that world of politics and the business side, right? And here's what's interesting for the audience. So Anthony is known as what is known as a political appointee, right? So you were invited in to come and do this job. Those are the only jobs that get fired, right? The careers, that's a joke about government, which is what do you do with a bad performer? Well, you promote them and you move them to another department, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a very fragile type of position. Like it's extremely branding and honorary to receive an invitation to come in as a head of a different group or department. But that is the only role that is easily terminated versus everyone else in government. Mm-hmm. takes a very hard time. So tell us a little bit about what was the cause of the termination, and what was that next day like? You woke up and maybe no regrets, but sort of what'd you do?
Well, when I got hired into the White House on July 21st, and so I had my press conference on Friday, July 21st, a friend of mine, General H.R. McMaster, was the National Security Advisor. And he took me into his office and he sat me down and we had a conversation. He says, I'm just so thrilled that you're here. I finally have a close friend that I can work alongside it. We'll coordinate things together. I want to have a party at my house for you, a welcome to the West Wing party on August 1st. Well, I got my ass fired on July 31st. And so when I got fired, McMaster said to me, "Jesus Christ, what am I going to do with the food, the beer and the hot dogs and the hamburgers?" I said, "Well, let's have a going away party." Okay, we're going to have a welcome to the West Wing party, but that didn't work out. So let's have a going away party. And so I stayed in Washington an extra night and I went to a going away party for myself, at Fort McNair, I guess it was, overlooking the Jefferson Memorial. And I hung out there with a couple of my friends from the White House, HR's kids, and I had some real laughs about the experience. And that's it. You can't be a baby. You can't be a sore loser, and here's the other things. Like, there were crisis communications people that reached out to me and said, "I handled this or I handled that." I said, "Okay, great." I said, "What's your pitch?" They said, "Go hide in a corner somewhere and don't come. Why don't you move to Europe for 5 years and then return after 5 years from Europe and people won't remember what happened to you?" And I laughed. I said, "So you mean I shouldn't go on the Colbert Show?" The guy invited, "No, you should not go on the Colbert Show." And you probably, I don't know if you can see it behind me. There's a cartoon of me behind me. that Steve Colbert's team, they had these cartoon renderings of me and they were blowing me up left and right. When Colbert called me, I said, okay, listen, I'm coming on the show, but I need to get one of those cartoons for my mom. And then I went on the show and he asked me if I thought I was going to last a long time in the White House. I was like, well, I thought I was going to last longer than a carton of milk in the refrigerator. I didn't think I was going to get blown out before the milk did. My point is that like when shit happens to you that you don't like, go through it. Don't move away from it. Because if you go through it, people respect you more. Like, wow, okay, that was a bad thing that happened to him. He did something stupid, got his ass fired. You know, your humiliation, self-humiliation is determined by you. It's not determined by others. You know, if you decide that you don't like me because of what happened to me, that's your choice. God bless you. It's your life. I like me and I don't regret what happened. I obviously made a mistake. I wish it didn't happen, but I'm not going to live in the world of regret over it.
Yeah. This is what develops resilience and grit, right? I love what you said. You gotta go through it, right? We're so easy. We'll go through the good stuff and the positive stuff. It's the stuff that like these challenges, these situations, these experiences that not just build character, but they build strength, right? And they build confidence. And, you know, this is where they say it takes a lifetime to become wise, right? It is through these things that we end up with the wisdom, right? And this is for a little bit of the younger audience, right? I think in your exercise to avoid the pain, if there's anything to take from this episode today and listening to Anthony's story, it's about leaning into it and leaning forward and pushing through. And I think what I also heard you say a lot, Anthony, is you also have a very strong community around you, right? Like you're not going at these things by yourself, right? Personal relationships and your community. Would you agree with that? Like community is an integral part of us being able to push through.
Yeah, I think, you know, you don't do anything alone, obviously. I mean, we're a social creature by nature, and so we have to keep our community close to us, and we have to listen. You don't need a large circle. You know, you can have 5 or 6 people you're close to, and if you're super close to them, that could be your lifetime circle. You know, we don't need this. You know, we need to pretend. You know, I find, you know, because I'm a public person, I find that I'm at my best when I'm with a small group of people. My 60th birthday, had a small dinner party with my family. I didn't want to have this blowout party. I'm not trying to impress anybody. And by the way, it was more fun for me to just be with the people I'm closest to. And so I think it's a lesson there, you know, like, you don't spend your day worried about what other people think. You know, we're in this weird era now where we go on social media, people read the comments, they take a picture of themselves, filtered, they put it up on the thing, they then compared their friends' lives who are also filtered. You know, we're looking at people's filtered lives, knowing that we're living an unfiltered life. And it causes too much anxiety. Just relax, you know, don't relax, you know, just go with the flow, enjoy it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, as you said earlier, Mel Brooks's famous line, right? None of us are getting out alive.
Yeah. And by the way, I don't, you know, there's some people want to live forever. I don't want to, I love Earth. I love life, but I'm not interested in being non-human. I think part of being
you're not this
human,
ultimate biohacker.
no, I think part of being, no, don't get me wrong. If you tell me I could live to 100 and I could stay vital, I'm signing up for that. But I don't want to be immortal here on Earth. I think that takes away your humanity. I think your humanity comes with the temporal nature of being here. And so, you know, listen, but I also have great faith in the mysteries of the universe, you know, and perhaps because I'm a practicing Catholic, I'm comfortable with my own demise more so. Don't get me wrong. I don't want a demise anytime soon, but I also don't feel like I need to live forever.
I know we're coming to the end, and we've got a hard stop. I got so many more questions to ask you, so but I will sort of cut them down. So I'm interested to get your perspective on the economic outlook of the world. Like, what are we economically looking like over the next couple of years? Any thoughts around that? And then, of course, I want to, for the audience, get some of your links out there so the audience can come and start following you and check some of your stuff out. But let's start with the first question, which is
just
economic outlook.
Let me just say the meta. I think I'm going to say the meta thing, and perhaps this is obvious, but the meta thing is that there is enough resources. It's an interesting planet because there's 7, 8, 9 billion people, but there's actually enough resources to sustain everybody if they're appropriately allocated. But the problem is that we're still dealing with the primordial aspects of our brain, where we're hunter gatherers and we want to gather way more for ourselves and our families than we probably need. And so what ends up happening is we have this divide now. We have some smart, successful, or well-born people. They're doing quite well. And then we have a very, very large group of people that are not doing well. And so the promise of America always was you could come here and regardless of your status, your class, you could rise here. You didn't have the sclerosis of the aristocracy in Europe or the caste system in India or whatever it might be around the world that suppresses people. But what we're finding now here in the United States is becoming much harder for the average person to do well. So you're at a crossroads now again in the world where we are going to do very well. There'll be AI, there'll be increases of productivity, there'll be major advancements in biotechnology and immunology, which will help us prosper and stay healthy. But we're widening the gap now. And so what's at issue is capitalism versus socialism and all this other stuff. And I'm a lifelong capitalist and I believe in the free market system. And I believe that you need a free market system to motivate people. But the flip side of it is we're a rich enough world where we have to create some level of a starting block for people where we need some level of equal opportunity. I'm not for equal outcomes. We talked about Elon Musk. I want there to be Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk sorts of people on the earth. I want them to thrive and be motivated to do what they've done because they've added lots of value to so many people. But we have to figure out a way to create this platform of equal opportunity, whether it's in education or healthcare and so forth. And so what's going to be at issue is how do we do that? If we go hard left to do that, we'll destroy everything because you'll demotivate people. And we can look at hard left socialism. It doesn't work. If we go too hard right in the purest forms of capitalism, that's going to be creating too much of a divide. So the question is, can you set up a fair system where people can do extremely well, but people that are not doing that well can get a fair shake? And so if you ask me economic outlook for rich people and the wealthy, it's very bright. But for middle and lower income people, if we don't resolve how to tame inflation, if we don't resolve how to fix the jobs training issue in the country, if we retool people for an advancing economy and the introduction of things like AI into their lives, we're going to leave a lot of people out, and that will create some level of dystopia. I don't want to live in a world where I'm safe and I'm in my barbed wire security compound living inside my McMansion with my security while my fellow neighbors are suffering. And so I'm just wondering if we can break the current political paradigm here in America and get politicians to think less about hard right or hard left, but what are the right or wrong things to do for the society. So you ask me about my economic outlook. If you got money, you're going to be fine. If you're listening to this podcast, you've got access to technology, so you're likely going to be quite fine. But there are people that are going to struggle as we adapt this economy. And the question is, you don't want to overly hand out to people because it's demotivating. But the flip side is you want to give them some opportunity. We had it here in the country. My parents experienced it. We were aspirational blue collar people. But a lot of these people now are desperational blue collar people. We don't want that. We don't want that for our society.
Yeah, your parents were different. They were considered the great great generation, right? The
Mhm.
silent generation, but the great generation, right? And you're right. That's
Yeah,
what the
also
U.S. was
a
about. But
product. Yeah, they were products of that environment. There's a different world now, different world today. We have to adjust to the world, but we have to rethink the way we're doing this politically. I mean, we've got this system now, which is oligarch. It's almost like a oligarchic duopoly. So a group of people at the top that are controlling the system. They're Democrats and Republicans. You know, a guy like RFK Jr., he's not going to get on the ballot everywhere. They're going to make sure that he doesn't, you know, and so again, we can say that that's fair or unfair, but the point being this oligarchy at the top, which has created this massive deficit. And, you know, I don't know. It doesn't feel like it's working. Doesn't feel like it's working. It's working for me. I'm fine. My kids are going to be fine, but we got to fix it, you know? And so economically, yes, economy's going to be strong. Stock market's going to go up. Is that enough?
Yeah, but we got to fix the world. Man, that's a whole nother episode, even RFK Jr., right? I think he'd be great, but you're right. He's not even going to get on the ballot.
Yeah, no, he's not anywhere near the president. He should drop out. And they want him to drop out, by the way. So, I mean, you know, that's what probably should
But
happen.
he is that middle ground. He's not extreme left. He's not extreme right. He is that middle ground. Anyway, I know we're coming to the end, and for the audience, if they wanted to check out your book, if they wanted to start following you, if there's a website for the Soul Conference, what do you want to drop for them? And then, of course, we're going to have all of that in the show notes as well.
So, look, I'm reachable at Scaramucci on Instagram and Twitter, at Scaramucci on LinkedIn. I've got 2 podcasts, which are thankfully starting to rise in the rankings. One is Open Book, where I interview authors. I have a love affair with reading and a minor love affair with writing. And so I like interviewing authors. And then I have a podcast with a incredible woman. She's a British journalist. Her name is Caddy Kay. And Caddy is, I don't know, 25 years at the BBC, 25 years living in the United States. And we are teamed up on something called The Rest in Politics, excuse me, US edition, which is going to be from now till the election. And weekly, we go through what's going on politically, you know, the good, bad, and the ugly.
Cool. Very cool. Well, for the audience, we'll make sure that we've got those links in the show notes. Anthony, I'm following you, I think, on Insta, and I think I added you on LinkedIn as well. So, you know, I've been connected with you.
If you're on
and
X,
at the end
that's where I'm at Scaramucci on X as well.
Yeah, I personally, I don't go on X a lot, but I am on X. All right. Most important question at the end. What do you think we could all do to be better humans tomorrow?
To me, it's one thing, and it's only one thing, and I want to keep it very simple. This isn't superficial, by the way. This is deep. And it's just one thing. It's kindness. And that's it. You got to get up in the morning and you got to think about kindness. And I often think of my grandmother. You know, I think of my grandmother's struggle to come to the United States, the risk she took to be here, her lack of friends, her lack of availability of work. She was told that no Italians need apply to certain jobs. She ended up as a maid. And so if I'm in a hotel room, I always leave a gratuity for the maid. That could be somebody's grandmother. It could be my grandmother. And I think that kindness is the number one thing. Even if you're in a bad mood, you're having a bad day, even if someone has shifted you or treated you inappropriately, if you can get your arms around the idea of being kind, it makes a world of difference for yourself and your family, and it'll make you a happier person.
What a great answer. What a great answer. Anthony Scaramucci, for the audience, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Anthony, we might have to do a part 2 because there's more to ask and chat about, but I really appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Real pleasure to be
being here. You too, man. You too. And for the audience, if you like today's episode, don't forget to share it out there. Don't forget to smash some of those stars. Go and follow Anthony on X and LinkedIn. Check out the SALT conference. It's an amazing conference and worth attending. And Anthony, thank you again for all your insight. For the audience, stay happy, stay healthy. We will see you all next week.